Hey there, I hope you're doing really well, and welcome to Insomnia Insight number 341, in which we're going to go over a super important concept set, perhaps the most important one that has come up here on the Sleep Coach School, which is befriending wakefulness. And I want to thank Edda before we get started here for letting me know that yesterday's upload had no sound, so I could quickly take that out, but here it is with sound. So before we get started here, we need to talk a little bit about how insomnia happens using what I called the perceived threat model. It will segue really nicely into befriending wakefulness, which is our topic today. So what is this? What is the perceived threat model? Well, remember that the human brain is a survival machine. In fact, not only the brain, I was just thinking about this the other day, the body too. Like every part of the human body is there for survival. The ears are there so we can hear things, we can see things with our eyes, we can smell things, we can feel things, we can, the legs are there so we can walk, etc. Every part of the body is there for survival. So is the brain. And in fact, if we look at, the core emotions we have, we will see that the mind is there for survival. If you look at happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, they are all there for survival. Happiness is the motivating thing that makes us bond with other human beings, spend time together, being happy together to create that cohesive clan that will make sure we survive if there's if we have to work together. Disgust is there to make sure we don't eat something poisoned. Sadness is there so that when the odds are overwhelming against us, we don't do anything. We just kind of play that. We stay still. We don't try to fight overwhelming odds. We do as little as possible. Sadness is a way to keep us safe when the odds are against us. Fear is there obviously to make us either like fight or flight, right? And anger is there to make sure we fight back. So the brain, the emotions, the mind are all there for survival. And guess what? When we are facing a physical, tangible threat like a grizzly bear, perfect. This is exactly what the human brain was designed for. When that grizzly bear is coming our way, we feel what emotion? We feel fear, and fear triggers what? Fight or flight. Either we scare the bear away or we hide from it. Either way, the outcome is good. We survived. Perfect. But guess what? It is now the year 2021, and we don't have that many physical, tangible threats to our survival. So oftentimes the mind, who's still designed for that world, gets a little bit confused. And that happens when you start having trouble sleeping. So let's say you've started having trouble sleeping for whatever reason, you're starting having sleepless nights. And even though there maybe was a trigger or there was an obvious trigger for the initial bout of sleeplessness or not, doesn't matter. At some point, the brain starts getting confused and it goes, whoa, here's a threat. I'm not sleeping. There's no sleep happening. Lack of sleep. Whoa, this is a threat. This is something that can harm me, that can hurt me. And so this is the thing with insomnia. Insomnia happens when sleeplessness has become a threat. And remember, sleeplessness, no sleep, is the same thing as wakefulness. So really what has happened is that the brain is starting to look at wakefulness as a threat. And why is this problematic? Well, guess what? When you are facing a real tangible physical threat, then that fear reaction, fight or flight, is perfect. But when the threat is a perceived one that is actually not a grizzly bear or a snake or something like that, then things get things don't work so well, because you cannot fight a perceived threat. You cannot defeat it, destroy it. You cannot hide from it or escape it. And by the way, the reason that this type of language, the language that describes conflict, like struggle, battle, fight, the bed has become a battlefield. I can't overcome this. How can I, that type of language illustrates how the brain is in this fight or flight mode, how it has identified being awake at night as a threat. Now, what's happening is literally, this is why it gets so confusing with insomnia, is that The brain is literally keeping you awake, trying to have you fight or escape wakefulness. It's become afraid of being awake, triggers fight or flight, and then you become more awake, and it gets really, really confusing. So now that you see the problem, it is actually not that difficult to see the solution. It's all about education. It's all about teaching the brain that wakefulness is not a grizzly bear. It is a teddy bear. It cannot hurt you. It is a perceived threat. And this is where befriending wakefulness comes in. That is, in my opinion, so far the best I've come up with for teaching the brain that wakefulness is not a threat. So how do you befriend wakefulness? How do you do that? Well, it's really all about when you're awake at night, during the evening or later at night, turning that wakefulness from a liability to an asset or something neutral, turning something that is a foe to a friend, you know. And how do you do that? Again, in a more practical way. Well, let's talk about like the time before you go to bed. That time before you go to bed, you typically, when you have trouble sleeping, do things like something soothing, you know, play some soothing music, keep the lights low, you know, you avoid spicy food, you don't look at screens, you know, things like that. What you're doing there is actually trying to escape wakefulness. You don't want to be awake, so you keep everything calm and cool, etc. If you do all those things for just pleasure, if that's how you like it, perfect. Then you're not escaping wakefulness. But if all those things, keeping it cool, dark, calm, like that, if that is a way to try to, you know, make yourself sleep more, then yes, you are not befriending wakefulness. You're doing the opposite. You're feeding the narrative that there is a threat and a problem. So when you do the opposite, when you turn that time before going to bed to something positive, productive, neutral, when you look forward to that time, you are befriending wakefulness. When instead of, you know, doing like breathing exercises, you watch Netflix or Hulu or watch TV or you read a book or you listen to a podcast. When you do something that is nice and that you enjoy, you are befriending wakefulness. You're using your wakefulness for pleasure, you know, just something positive or neutral. It kind of gets stuff done, you know, that's either one are good. Now here, this part is typically not as difficult to kind of like accept as the other one, which is, okay, what if I wake up and it's 2 a.m.? Well, guess what? Number one, don't check the clock. That's a very powerful way of befriending wakefulness, actually, because the act of checking what time it is an attempt to try to control things. And what are you trying to control here? Well, you're trying to kind of control your wakefulness. You want to have less of it. So checking the time is a way of trying to escape wakefulness, and letting go of that, not checking the time, is an act of befriending wakefulness. But that said, again, when you wake up middle of the night, it's dark outside, you don't know what time it is because you're not checking. Well done. Well, guess what? This is another time where you should befriend wakefulness. You have to do the same approach, use the same approach that you did kind of before you went to bed, for even when you wake up at night, you know. Do something that you enjoy again. Have something prepared is very good, you know, because you don't want to spend time figuring out, well, what should I do with my wakefulness? Like, should I do this? Should I do that? That is very anxiety provoking. So like, have something prepared that is neutral or enjoyable for when you wake up at night, and befriend wakefulness. Now, if the following thought popped into your brain right now, you're on something big. If you thought at this moment, well, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I start watching some Netflix, will I not become more awake? If you thought that, you are onto something big, something very important. You have identified that you are afraid of being awake. Because when you thought, won't that make me more awake? That just shows that you have this fear of being awake, which is driving your insomnia. So think of it this way. If you start watching Netflix and you're up like for several hours, well, guess what? You have given your brain a huge important lesson in fearlessness. You have shown your brain that it is acceptable, okay to be awake. Maybe you'll be tired the following day, true. But guess what? In the long term, when you befriend wakefulness, sleep comes your way for sure, because when there is no threat there, you do really, really well. So when you start befriending wakefulness, you start taking paths to sleeping well forever. I hope you found this super, super helpful. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment. If you would like to submit a question for open class, then send that to questions@thesleepcoachschool.com. We are very close to launching our membership program here on the Sleep Coach School, which will have video-based classes like this, a forum that myself, Coach Michael, will moderate, and there will be dropping classes every week where they'll be like Zoom-based, where me or Coach Michael present a lecture just like this one, and then we'll have a discussion around it. So check out the sleepcoachschool.com. You'll be able to enroll very, very shortly. If you prefer having one-on-one coaching, text-based, with a nice curated curriculum, then you're very welcome to check out BedTyme on the App Store. So with that said, hope you found this really helpful, and I look forward to having you back here real soon. And I will remember to put on to make sure my microphone is working next time I record a video. Until then, bye-bye.